Hey guys, it's Geography Lover here. Welcome back to another brand new video. And today we're looking at events in the 1930s. I know I haven't been uploading a little bit, but I feel like it's appropriate we do some more videos that relate to the decades, since they take a little bit longer time to make. But please be patient, and more videos like these decade ones will be coming up shortly. So let's get started with the 1930s. So first up is politics. There were two presidents during the 1930s. The first president, the 31st president, was Herbert Hoover, who served from 1929 to 1933. He won the 1928 election, as I said back in the last decade's video, and he was the current president at this time. However, he was very unpopular after the Wall Street crash in 1929, so the whole country was not a fan of the way he was handling the Great Depression at the beginning of it. And then after he was defeated in 1932 by Franklin D. Roosevelt, who became the 32nd president, who served from 1933 to 1945, he won the 1932 and 1936 election in the 1930s. He also won the 1940-1944 election, but that'll be in the next video. So the biggest scandal/issues during the 1930s was the Great Depression, which is pretty much defines the decade. FDR did have some New Deal policies. However, they weren't perfect, and a lot of them, led to a lot of the work programs that exist today. So we have some fashion and tech. We have this kind of camera, which looks kind of weird, but it does have a lens and everything, and a lot of things on it. We have the radio. Again, that's a 1930s radio. That was in the last video. The telephone, which was a speed-up dial, so you had to put your finger in and rotate it. It's a rotile phone. We had some fashion, so the women kind of wore these long dresses, kind of like the 1920s, but they had sleeves, bigger sleeves, and hats, so their hair was a little bit longer than the 1920s. And men still wore suits, as always. So we have entertainment and music. So they kind of have this new swing music, which kind of came off the jazzy music of the 1920s. So it was kind of an off-brand of it, and they had more dancing, and it was more dancing than the whole jazzy music. And then we have 6 popular movies of the decade. We have Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, Walt Disney Company's first movie. Frankenstein, the horror film, Wizard of Oz, very popular movie, Dracula, King Kong, the original King Kong, and Gone with the Wind. Those are one of the 6 of the most popular movies in the 1930s. And then we have some controversies and crimes. We have, again, Prohibition was still a thing until 1933, until the 21st Amendment was passed by FDR and the House of Representatives and the Senate. And also Hooverville. So Hoovervilles were basically these kind of slums that were created during the Great Depression because people lost their jobs and they had no money. So they ended up having to go to these poor places and live in these little shacks because they had no money. So it was that dire of a situation the economy was in. Speaking of the economy, that's the next thing. The economy 1930s had one of the worst economic situations in world history. It was a bear market, which meant that there was the selling price was much higher than it was originally. It was much lower than it was originally sold for. So when you sell it for less than when originally you bought it for. So the Great Depression caused many people to lose their jobs, and the economic crash was the result of the stock market crash in 1929. However, society did recover by the end of the decade because of the beginning of World War II. So a wartime economy was much better than the pre-wartime economy, which was not in a great state. But there's some culture, as this decade is also called the Dirty 30s instead of the 1930s, the Dirty 30s. Some popular sayings of the decades were Big House, which meant jail, City Juice, which meant like water, like city water, Giggle Juice, which was kind of like whiskey, Abyssinia, which meant I'll be seeing you, pretty much like a goodbye thing. Blow Your Wig meant kind of like you're kind of shocked a little bit, and so to Gobsmacked, it also meant very like surprised, shocked. And we have some pictures of FDR making his speech here. We have some young members listening to the radio, and then we have people, this woman and her children living in the Hoovervilles, which were kind of like the slums at the time. And then at the end of the decade, it ended on December 31st, 1939, and by this point, the world was plunged into World War II in Europe and Asia. Most people say the 1930s was a decade that was forgotten, because it was sad and the economic term shift, but it did pave the world that we still see today. The impacts of the Great Depression had on society helped shape our modern world, and this was shown through this decade. Even though the economic situation was very terrible, people still fought through, and it still had a great impact, and it did change our world for the better. Thank you guys for watching this video. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.